blueprint called Thriving by Design. He is saying in his blueprint, which I have, he has his blueprint that we have to bring all these people of color and ethnic minorities out to the rural communities, and we must protect them through human rights organizations and these hotlines, and we're going to bring out Alana out to the rural communities. It says right in this, right in Thriving by Design. To unite the urban to the rural. They're bringing them out because, well, there's a lot of reasons for that. Is because Minneapolis, St. Paul is becoming so predominantly structured by the Met Council, the United Nations, under Agenda 21. They're going to smaller apartments. People can't live in them. They're more expensive. So the larger families or minority families, it says right in the doctrine, they're actually going out of the cities now to afford to have bigger families. And they're squeezing everybody tight. And what I noticed is in this town, because I know you guys do a lot of Agenda 21 here because I've studied it all. And I drove around this city today and I said, oh my gosh, look at all the stack and pack. Apartment buildings going up everywhere. That's Agenda 21. That's stack and pack. And you guys are full on board on Agenda 21 here. And we could do a whole presentation on it. So in 183, as you can see, again, the next document, nothing's but Muslims. Now the term Islamophobia, it's a rational fear. It actually was created in the 1980s in England. In England it was created. It was brought to the United States, and it was used as a weapon by who? It was used as a weapon by one of the unindicted co-conspirators under the Holy Land Trial Foundation, number 27, which was the IIIT, Organization of Islamic Thought, International Institute of Islamic Thought, out of Herndon, Virginia. They created and they weaponized the Islamophobia and took this to a weapon and made it look like it's an actual word. And they used it against us for any type of hate speech, and they weaponized it. So it was actually created out of a think tank in Herndon, Virginia, to weaponize it against free speech in the United States. You can look that up. So, the statement by the Conference of Mayors, this is where I told you it happened in Charlotte, Virginia. I said the wrong state. It was Charlotte, Virginia when the car backed up. This is when it all catalyzed after that. They said that that's when all these hate speech laws started kicking in. That's when the Mayor's Compact and all these other laws started forming through 501c3s. Now, I talked about 1618, hatred against Muslims. I talked about 257 and 118, where they expanded it out. But just recently, and I just keep adding this keeps getting longer and longer. But just recently, you remember when Omar spoke and she condemned Israel, and then everybody went after her, and they said, we got to, you can't do that, they were going to censure her. All the politicians got together in a room and they wrote a resolution called HF, not a resolution, it's a file, HF 2587, and they were going to say that you can never condemn another politician, but you can never state her loyalty to her country and not the country of origin, where she comes from. So they cannot talk about her loyalty to another country or another faith, which overexceeds the Constitution. That was written into this. And when they wrote that in there, that was only just a snippet at the top, and the rest of it went into hate speech. And every single congressman wrote and signed on to this. And I confronted Tom Emmer, Congressman Tom Emmer, and I said, I just need you to explain to me, you just signed HF 2587, and he blew up on me in front of a crowd of people before I ever got it out of my mouth. I don't know what that is, what does that mean? I said, well, it means that you signed on to something, but it excludes Christians. It only includes Sikhs, Hindus, Jews, minorities, and Muslims. Sound familiar? Sounds like, what, 257, doesn't it? So they could not get House Resolution 257 passed. So they bypassed 257, and they wrote another one called HF 2587 and got everybody to sign on to it. Okay, they got everybody to sign on to it. And what's interesting about 257, I asked Tom Emmer, I said, where are Christians? He said, they're all included. I said, their name is not on that document. I don't care what you say, he said, they're all included. Their name doesn't have to be in the document. Why did it say Sikhs, Hindus, Jews, Muslims, minorities? Why did it say Christians? Because they deliberately left it out under the United Nations resolution. It was deliberately left out. And their congressman signed on to this, a task force on Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. The same thing that the Anti-Defamation League signed on to. The same thing as the Mayor's Compact. The same thing as 257. The same thing as 118 and United Nations Resolution 118, which was expanded out. You see the picture here that's gathering together? They are a full-on assault on you in your own community, and people don't even know. We get 30 people here. You get 115,000 people in this city, and we get 30 people who are going to try to convince 115,000 people what I just told you. It's pretty difficult because I can't get it out in the media, can I? Can I? I can't get enough people over 30 to tell them, my gosh, you're being assaulted and it's taken away. Because if they take your first right amendment away from you, they take your second right amendment away from you. Because you'll have no voice to protect yourself. Because once they take one away, they take the other away. Right? One falls under the other. And then I looked it up in the United Nations resolution. They are working on that, the first right, to go after the second. It's exactly what I thought they were doing. They're taking away your first right amendment of speech because they're slowly picking away for people to get their guns taken away. If you take, I was told just recently, if you take the marijuana substance and CBD or whatever, that you can't own a gun. If you're a felony, you can't own a gun. If you do this, you can't own a gun. You know what I mean? So they're slowly picking away from you. And what they're trying to do is if you have hate speech or intolerance, you can't own a gun. That's what it's going to. Because you're going to be reported to the federal agencies, the federal task force. And once they report you and you go to apply for a gun, when this pushes through, they're going to say, no, animus, hostile or ill feeling. That's what they're going to do. Slowly take it away from you through initiatives and resolutions. And what's really interesting, because if you look at this 2587, look at the cast of characters. The task force shall consist of members. Attorney General, who's that? Keith Ellison. And then you go down here, the Commissioner of Human Rights. What is human rights? It has to follow the international law of the United Nations. And then you go down here to the bottom, and you start getting in here, the Executive Director of the Muslim Society of Minnesota. Why are they on a task force for the United States state of Minnesota? Why are they on there? Why is the Executive Director of Dal Farouk, an Islamic, the biggest mosque in Minneapolis? Why are they on a task force? Because remember, their hate, the assaults on hate crimes on Muslims are extremely low. Why are they on here? The Executive Director of the Islamic Association of North America is on there. The Executive Director of the Council of American Affairs, who's that? Jailani Hussein, right? CARE, designated as a terrorist organization, 82nd most powerful in the world. Why is this happening? Because we have a governor who created a task force or a team of 29 along with Keith Ellison, and they're going after your rights and they're writing these laws. And I can't even go to my old congressman and express it. So he blows up and tries to insult me and tells me that Christians are on. You see Christians on there? I don't see Christians on there. It goes on a report. The report is before February 2015, 2020. The task force shall report to the chair and ranking minority members of legislation. It goes on talking about Muslims and Jews. They must report in February 2020 all the things that are happening in Minnesota. Again, I go back. The people that are on that task force is number 22. That's Karen, unindicted co-conspirator in the largest terrorist financing trial in the United States. Why are they sitting and making laws in Minnesota, and why are we listening to them? Why do they have so much power, like Darul Farouk, a Muslim organization, a mosque? These are the unindicted co-conspirators. Why is the Muslim American Student Association number 2? Why are they in 11 different high schools in Minnesota? 11 high schools in Minnesota, and probably more. Why are they in over 700 colleges right now? They are stronger. I talked to some people at St. Cloud State University. They're stronger than the Republicans and the Democrats combined. They're two parties at the college level. That's how powerful they are at St. Cloud State University. They're in the colleges here in Rochester. And they're an unindicted co-conspirator, and you have them having organizations and you're paying for it at your college. Does that make sense? Unindicted co-conspirators, and the only reason they didn't get indicted is because Obama came in and closed the case down. That was the only reason that this didn't go forward. So let's look. I just took a few cities in Minnesota under hate crimes. Okay, if this was such a vast, big hate thing going on, I took St. Cloud. We were just written up at St. Cloud in the New York Times a month ago as a hateful city against Muslims. They just wrote it up 2 weeks prior to that to Wilbur as one of the most hateful places in America. Look at St. Cloud. They've got one race crime and one religion crime. And I don't even know if that is white against black or black against white. I don't know if that's Christian against Muslim or vice versa. That's one. And we just hit the front page of the Minneapolis Star. Minneapolis Star and the New York Times. Front page. Wilbur hit the page too. Look, it's got 0. And they got written up in the front page. What is Keith Ellison up to? Why is he going after all? What's Tim Waltz up to? You look at here, Rochester, you got 34,000 people, you're at 10 of race, but we don't know if that's black on white, white on black. We don't know what that is. Only one under, or 3 under religious. Religion under hate crimes. Do these look like they're, out of control? Does this look like an apartheid? Because these numbers aren't showing it. Even in the University of Minnesota, the numbers aren't showing it. So why is this so, why do they have to have all these hate crime groups and task force and all these different things that are popping up everywhere, and human rights commissions?
Hey, Ron.
Yeah.
The question is with Rochester with 10, who can go to the asking what that information, where is it from?
You should be able to go to the Human Rights Commission. And the Human Rights Commission is usually, like in St. Cloud, run by a minority or a Muslim.
Oh, what do you mean, like the chief of police?
Yeah, well, he might know. It's 10. You should really find that out.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Because when we say hate crimes, first thing that comes into my mind is, what's the first thing? White against black, right? That's the first thing you think of. We don't know. Because here, I'm going to give you, I'm going to switch this a little bit. Let's take your analogy, let's take that there are 10 and 3 in Rochester. Okay, let's take 10 and 3 in Rochester. Rochester has what, 115,000 people, right?
About 130, I think. That's what I heard last.
Well, it's 115, but the sign said coming in it was 108, but now they're saying it's 115. 84,274 of those are white. And there's only 7,365 black. Now, let's take this number and let's use these statistics. Let's use these statistics. If the FBI says that there's 50.7% known offenders were white and 21% of them were African American and other races accounted for the remaining known. Now, 50% white, right? 50% white, stick with that number. If you go with 50% white and 25%, 21 of those, 21% was black, well, you are already, what is that? 80 times more white people in Rochester. 80 times. And only 21%, and 50% of that to 7,000 blacks, which means there's a 700% increase over whites. 700% increase that blacks are committing the crimes over whites. Does that make sense? There's 50% of these and 21 of these. Well, it's overwhelmingly in this 21%. They're committing a larger percent by 700% larger than the white population. So when you're looking at these hate crimes, you got to go, huh. You know, percentage-wise, it looks like the whites are committing these crimes, but they're also 7 times more, or almost 8 times more than the black population. And percentage-wise, the black population is committing almost 700 times more than the white population as far as the numbers are concerned. So we look at that, we think, oh wow, 50% of the white people are committing these crimes. Yeah, we're also 80 times more people with almost the same stats. I want to bring this to Rochester. Rochester is the home of liberalism in Minnesota, is the place that they're passing stuff right underneath your nose and you have no idea. They're doing it through initiatives, they're doing it through 501c3s, they're doing it through very liberal politicians, and they're creating these programs. There's a group called Journey to Growth. You ever heard of them? Huh? Journey to Growth. Journey to Growth is an organization, a 501c3, a comprehensive 5-year strategy to coordinate Rochester and the economic development and Rochester Chamber of Commerce. Now, effectively grow and diversify the economy of the Southwest region consisting of the following counties without borders. They don't want borders anymore. They don't want any borders. So who are these counties? Dodge, Freeborn, Fillmore, Goodhue, Houston, Mower, Olmsted, Steele, Wabasha, Winona. So this Journey to Growth is working on a comprehensive plan. And what's the word comprehensive plan? You have to say that. That is the name for Agenda 21. It's the same name. They're interchangeable. Effectively grow and diversify the economy. Irina, I don't know how to say her name, whatever, from the Council of Europe. Now this is important. From the Council of Europe, will be visiting Rochester for the day and joining the Mayor Brady to sign the letter of intent. Now a lady from Minneapolis came out here and she recruited, she's a recruiter for the Council of Europe. The Council of Europe is the controller or the benefactor or the one who runs the Human Rights Commission in Europe under the United Nations. Under the United Nations. President Trump got out of UNESCO and the Paris Climate Agreement. So we have nothing to do with the United Nations. We try to stay away from that. And then Mark Dayton says in 2016, we're going to be one of the only states that will not get out of the United Nations UNESCO agreement and the Paris Climate Agreement. 16 states agreed it. Mark Dayton says, nope, we're not listening to Trump. We're staying in it. They went into this, and the only city in North America, in the United States, that joined the Council of Europe was Rochester. The only city that joined the Council of Europe, and our own government said they will never be part of the United States, the Council of Europe, but Rochester and the Mayor Brady signed on to it. Now, why would he sign? And what is the Council of Europe? Well, we'll go on here. It says, for the United Nations, the Council of Europe is an instrumental in advancing the principles of democracy and Human Rights in Europe. Okay? So we know the council is the head of the human rights, and what's really interesting, because if you don't believe that they're part of the United Nations, the Council of Europe works closely within large numbers of bodies. And look at all the United Nations right here, and the World Bank, who controls the Agenda 21. So why did the mayor, Brady, sign on to an international agreement with the Council of Europe on human rights? Because that's under the United Nations Agenda 21, outside the scope of the Constitution. Why did he sign on that?
How is that even legal?
What?
How is it legal for him to enter into a treaty relationship with a foreign?
It's not, and that's why I think they just did this as a resolution. It's not a law, because remember who makes laws? Congress makes laws, right? But they made it a resolution because they're gearing this up and they're trying to get this. Just like welcoming cities resolutions, just like inclusive cities resolutions, they're the same thing that are written out of the United Nations, out of Habitat 3 under Ban Ki-moon. And if you look at it here, Ban Ki-moon signed on to this, and Rochester signed on to the inclusive cities resolution. I'll get that in just a second.
Didn't Brady sign that when he was leaving office?
Yeah, not too long before.
Kim could just.
Yep, it was not too long before. I called him up and he wouldn't return my phone call. I left a message with him.
But it was his last, I think it was his last few months.
Yeah, and his wife was passed away, so I mean, I'm not giving an excuse.
So, Ron,
Yeah.
because it's a resolution, can another mayor rescind that resolution?
We could, but not the mayor that you have now.
She won't. She will never.
She's escalated.
I know,
She's-
she would never. She's
Nope.
worse than Brady.
Anybody can rescind it, but they planted their seeds and these foundations are now growing off of that. They're getting bigger and more powerful. And we think they're laws and they're not. The European Human Rights Courts backs Sharia. Now, the European Council, right, backs Sharia law.
Right.
Let me repeat that. European Council that the mayor signed on to backs Sharia law. It doesn't back the United States Constitution, it backs a foreign law who subjugates women, who subjugates blacks, who treats Christians and Jews as dhimmis, half a human. This city signed on to it. It says here, has effectively legitimized an Islamic blasphemy code in the interest of preserving religious peace in Europe. The ruling effectively establishes a dangerous legal precedent, one that authorizes European states to curtail the right of free speech if such speech is deemed to be offensive to Muslims and thus pose a threat to religious peace. Says, and right here, the court was established in January 1959, Article 19, the European Convention of Human Rights, when the members were elected in the consultative assembly of the Council of Europe. See? That they signed on to in Rochester. The Council of Europe, Human Rights, has ruled that criticism against Muhammad and the founder of Islam constitutes incitement of hatred and therefore is not protected free speech. Because so is that the way it's going to be in Rochester? If I say something against Muhammad now, my rights, I'm not protected here. Because I'm not protected under that. You've already made a resolution in this town which took away my rights of freedom of speech because I can't protect myself when I talk about Islam right now in Rochester.
So is this a UN type treaty? It's just been signed by our governor, or our mayor. Our mayor, I meant.
Only state in the country, only city in the country.
Okay, so, does this react the same way that, like, say, a treaty does, where it supersedes our Constitution?
No, it can't, because who makes laws? Congress makes laws. It is a soft treaty amongst the people, and if you, let's put it this way. if we have a parade here in Rochester, and every year we do the parade, we do a watermelon eating contest. That's the tradition. That's the big thing. And the kids grew up eating this every day. And they said, well, I did it my whole life. That's what we've always done.
Right.
That's what they do. They put these initiatives in there, and the kids grow up, well, we've always done that. That's the law. No, it's not. These aren't laws. They're initiatives. They want you to believe that these are laws, and they've always been in place. That's why they call them initiatives. We initiate them into the society, and we hope that everybody grabs onto them and runs with them. Okay, that's initiatives. So European Council, again, hate speech, whether online or offline, and it impacts the European society and a much bigger causes for concern for the European Council of Europe, is often manifested with discrimination and leads to human rights violations. A lot of this stuff I'll repeat. So the resolution in support of the cultural diversity for amending the comprehensive plan. So here it is. This is Rochester, right? In 1999, in a comprehensive plan, and what's the word comprehensive plan mean? Agenda 21. That's what it said. The comprehensive plan says the comprehensive blueprint of Agenda 21. They have it in every city, they have it in every hospital, they have it in every college, and they have it in every region, a comprehensive plan. Whenever you see comprehensive plan, always know it's Agenda 21. And in 1999, they wrote it and they adopted into the plan just recently that they're going to join the Council of Europe. Whereas where it says there, the whereas. And they included that into the Charter of Compassion. I'm going to get into that in just a second, the Charter of Compassion. So they implemented this into your blueprint, into your city blueprint. Okay, so we saw the national, the international laws, the national laws, the Congress laws that they're implementing, and now you get down to your now governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz. As I stated, he took growth and justice, and he took oneminnesota.org, and he combined the two together and west.
I have to tell you, this is absolutely real. Last week, Thursday, on the front page of the Rochester Post-Bulletin is the case of a Subway restaurant employee here in Rochester. If anybody wants the link, I'll send it to you. Just speak to me. I'll send you the link. He is a special needs individual. He's 33 years old. He's doing the best he can in life. He's working at Subway restaurant. He had an altercation with a sort of a, I'll say, a privileged person. She took offense. There was an altercation in the restaurant, and he's being brought up on a misdemeanor. He received a misdemeanor citation, and he has a court date set in September for having blasphemed in the Subway. He's an employee of Subway, but he is not completely in control of himself here. A little bit special needs. But this is how you shame him on the front page. His name is in the paper, and fear is struck into the hearts of everyone else that if you dare say something or speak out or talk about something going on, then that could happen to you. It has a chilling effect, and that's all I want to say. It's not just theoretical, it's in practice right now. And it's on the front page of the Rochester Post-Bulletin from last week, Thursday. I'll send you the link if you want to read it with your own eyes, read the narrative, because it's unbelievable. The narrative, the woman's kids were calling him the knife guy, because as an employee, Subway, they have a knife in their hand. So the first thing they're going to do is grab the bread and cut the bread open. But they got, anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But they
So there's another case.
You
You guys are probably all familiar with the case of Pastor Parsha, right, this past year? At the Mall of America, where he was, two Muslim women came up to him and wanted to talk about Christianity. Another Muslim woman saw this. She had him arrested for trespassing at the Mall of America. He was a minister, right?
Yeah, he's a
Christian pastor. He was handcuffed to the chair, had no water or food for 3 hours, and he was held up for trial for blaspheming Islam in the Mall of America. Mall of America has now become a no-go zone for Islamic law. because they held him to a chair and handcuffed him until he then had to go to jail and for trespassing. So those things are happening all over. We just don't hear about it because the media doesn't want to tell you. But anyway, go back to the oneminnesota.org. It is all about racial. If you read the whole thing about Tim Walz, I've asked them, they have no wording in there, it has to do anything with white people or Caucasians. It is purely about racial, social, and economics. These are the 3 E's in Agenda 21: social equity, social economics, and social environment. So those are the 3 E's, and it talks about this. So they're working with Alana, and you can explain what Alana was earlier. So Tim Walz, as I talked about earlier, I said that he had a transition team of 29, and in the middle, when I first started getting to speak, I came from California, and I came here. The first places I started speaking was Austin, Minnesota. I spoke in Austin a lot, and the Rochester Post started this narrative that I came from California and I am this big hater, and I mean, this guy named Randy Krebs, Greg Selnow. He was a reporter for Rochester Post. They condemned me at every angle and tried to shut me down wherever I spoke, Albert Lee or Austin. But I spoke about the Hormel Foundation and the Blandin Foundation. Those are the 2 entities that are pushing the oneminnesota.org. Hormel and Blandin partnered up together. Blandin is in every single city just about in Minnesota. They're in over 700 cities. They do recruitment along with the League of Cities. They recruit, and because I've been to the League of Cities meetings, so I know this. They recruit people to believe in the same ideologies, and Blandin is probably one of the most powerful recruitment centers. They train people every week. They just got done training Red Wing and Wabasha in the last 2 months, I think 2 months ago. It's a $96,000 program, $4,000 per person, underwritten. The Blandin Foundation, they are absolutely giddy right now. The ex-president of Blandin said, finally, since 1991, we're finally we're going to complete what we started in 1991. Named Paul Olson. They've been working on this universal inclusion social equity program since the early 90s, since the inception of the Agenda 21. They have been in full force and been training civic leaders all throughout the state. You have to take the Myers-Briggs test, a psychological test, to go to this training. But they partnered up with Blandin and the Hormel Foundation. And all I used to do is talk about 2 hours, talk about these two, what they did to Austin. Austin was the test case in Minnesota. How many of you know this? Austin was the test case in the United States. They were going to see if they could take an all-white city and flip it over without the people